Fernando, great to have you here today. First of all, why should people put their money in Latin America?
Well, Latin America is an underdeveloped part of the world. We have a lot of good companies growing much more than any stable countries. We have a cycle of reduced inflation and lower interest rates and a lot of growth for long-term investors in the future.
You've been investing in Latin America for almost 15 years, focusing on finding great companies and buying them for a fair price. Could you give us a short introduction of your investment philosophy?
We have plenty of items we can go through when we analyze companies, but the three most important is we focus on companies, not markets. We look for good companies with growth and value underneath, and we look for a consistent during long period of time ROI, return on equity, and we try to be very near of the companies we invest. We stay close to them, close to the management, understanding what they're thinking and what they are, and what their goals for long term.
Could you give us an example of a typical company that fits your investment criteria?
Nowadays we're investing in a pharmaceutical company called Profarma. Profarma exists in Brazil for a long period of time. It's a family company. They were focused on distribution, and they decide in the last years go into retail on pharmaceutical stores. They're generating much more cash, and they're growing much more stronger than when they were in the distribution sector. But for the market, they're still a distribution companies. They are not seeing this change, and we think there's plenty of asymmetric on value and price in this case. That's why it's a company in our portfolio.
The banking sector in Brazil has been very stable compared to the one in Europe. What makes Brazilian banks such a good investment?
Well, first of all, the regulation for Brazilian banks is very strict, much more strict in terms of leverage than you have in the other parts of the world. The second is that banking industry in Brazil is much more concentrated than the average. We have 5 banks in Brazil, 2 state-owned, and 3 private held companies. They have returns over equity much more consistent than the banks in the rest of the world, because they have a competitive advantage much more developed.
Are there any specific sectors you're currently under or overweighting?
We always try to get into companies, not so into sectors, but we try to avoid sectors that we don't understand the incentives they have in the management. State-held sectors, state-held companies are less attractive to us, and companies that are in sectors with long cycles that we don't understand, long global cycles that we don't understand, like commodities. In the other hand, we like companies that we can fully understand the business model and their competitive advantages, like pharmaceutical, retail, and financial industry.
There's been a lot of focus on politics in Brazil with the impeachment of the sitting president and the Petrobras corruption scandals. How do you take these political events into consideration when you make investment decisions?
Political instability in Brazil always happens. We have a short part of our history that we don't have political instability. So one way of dealing with this is having cash in the fund, so we can use this stability in our favor. Besides that, the volatility brings to us a lot of opportunities to buy good companies in low prices. Of course, if you intend to invest for long term. The volatility for long-term investors is an advantage, and you can use this if you have cash in the fund.
Besides Brazil, you have also invested in other countries such as Chile, Peru, and Colombia. Is it difficult to find good companies in these markets, and are you currently looking at any other countries in the region?
it's pretty difficult to find good companies there because you have different regulation and different ways of how political environment inflicts the company decisions. Chile is not so underdeveloped than the other countries. It's like a much more stable country. The Peruvian economy is an economy that's growing very fast. They're changing a lot. The environment is changing a lot. And Colombia as well is changing a lot. We started investing in Latin America in 2010, and we intend to invest in all the countries, but at that time and still now, we think that countries that are stable like Uruguay, or they are becoming stable now as Argentina, maybe in the future can give us some good opportunities, some good investment opportunities. But we think that Chile, Peru and Colombia now are the best countries to invest.